Thank you, Honourable Speaker, sir. Honourable Speaker, sir, there are a few consequential bills that have been put on the floor, and I wish to speak on just a couple of them, but in brief, sir. First of all, if I could contribute towards the ECAL budget amendment bill. Mr. Speaker, sir, just briefly, sir, the key amendments to this particular act being proposed are related to environment and a climate adaptation levy, which now allows for refunds to businesses who may have been charged for ECAL where they were not supposed to pay. The ECAL is charged at the rate of 5% on the gross annual turnover of a prescribed service. The government strongly practices good governance, and as such, the addition of this provision will allow for a legal framework that is enforced impartially, sir. These objectives, rules, and structures and procedures are actually adapted to the legitimate expectations and the needs of businesses. This allows for good accounting practice from both the business and the government, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, in such trying times where revenue for businesses has been vastly impacted through declining sales, we understand that additional expenses could be a substantial burden on financial statements. Therefore, this particular refund of ECAL to qualifying businesses will now allow offsetting costs with any outstanding duty, fee, or charges owed by the businesses, and this will ease the expensive burden on businesses. The government is ensuring that any payment made by businesses is justified and correctly accounted for. And this is actually an effort, Mr. Speaker, sir, to ease the business environment in Fiji for both domestic and foreign investors. In addition, sir, the government has removed decal on certain items, and this incentive is to encourage tourism and ease expenses on personal and commercial imports. The ongoing pandemic has significantly, as we've mentioned time and time again, affected our tourism industry. However, we are confident that once the borders are open, we're prepared to welcome tourists back. I know the Honorable Gavoka thinks that because we are in a pandemic, everything needs to stop, that there is a hard lockdown on our planning and strategies. And I hope these amendments will give him some indication of how the government is actually preparing for reopening. A little bit of research on the budget allocations pre-COVID and now would have informed him very well, sir, about Tourism Fiji and its activities and how it has significantly streamlined and restructured, and there's a reduction of about 40% operational and 70% marketing across the board. And this actually includes the 70%, this includes the TF's overseas representations. If he thinks that TF should be shut down, and his indication yesterday was, are we going to cut more staff and all that kind of stuff, the indication is that he would get rid of all of them. And it's extremely short-sighted, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, we need a marketing presence for our re-entry and recommencement. Otherwise, all the domestic incentives and tax reforms and packages will amount to nothing. We need the ability to rev up our tourism marketing and operations. Our competitors have not stopped promoting, and we cannot be left behind. In order to stay competitive and in the minds of our visitors, Honorable Speaker, sir, we need for Tourism Fiji to play its part. So the government, with its stakeholders, especially TF and Fiji Airways, has a place in market re-entry plans. And I've said this time and time again, and I wish it listened. In preparation for all of that I've just mentioned, ECAL has been removed on personal imports, goods imported by traveling passengers and crew, and unaccompanied luggage and goods imported for hotels and resorts. And removal of these fees will actually enable the resorts and hotel operators to inject the funds into maintenance and renovations, etc. So we're also encouraging investments in a number of areas that are essential economic drivers amidst the challenges. And we can no longer sit around and wait for the pandemic to be over for us to get back to our daily lives. This is the new normal, and are well undertaken and completed. We can no longer sit around and wait for the pandemic to be over, sir. I fully support the ECAL Levy Act 2015 Budget Amendment Bill for 2025. Honorable Speaker, sir, with respect to Bill number 22 and the Tax Administration Budget Amendment Bill 2021, Clause 2 of the bill amends the Section 11 of the Act to provide Fiji Revenue and Customs may only amend an assessment within 3 years for companies with a gross turnover of less than 1.25 million. Now, what it really does, Mr. Speaker, sir, companies that earn below 1.25 million are classified as micro, small, and medium enterprises. And this gives our MSMEs some degree of self-assessment, which in turn gives businesses the freedom to assess their own return using valid documentation. Clause 3 of the bill amends Section 33(1) of the Act so that payment of a refund of overpaid tax under a law is first applied against any tax or duty owed by the taxpayer under any tax, customs, or excise law. Mr. Speaker said the change creates a clear understanding on the actions taken to be taken on overpaid taxes, whether you're an individual or a business. This gives more relief to our taxpayers as all dues are taken into account before the refunds are done. Mr. Speaker, sir, basically what this means, taxpayers can use excess credit in VAT or income tax or any other tax type to offset against custom debt. However, this will not be applicable for disputed tax. These are important provisions, sir. Similarly, taxpayers will be allowed to use excess customs credit to offset any tax debt. Mr. Speaker, sir, there are a whole host of amendments. Clause 4 of the bill inserts a new section, Section 46B, to impose penalties of $500 on taxpayers who submit dishonored checks. And giving dishonored checks is unjust on those who clearly are honest and clear their taxes. Therefore, those who attempt to deceive the tax authorities should be held accountable for their actions. Tax amnesty will be granted to taxpayers with tax arrears to obtain waiver for all penalties upon the payment of real taxes. These are important provisions, sir. To qualify for the amnesty, taxpayers must make payment arrangements within 3 months from the 1st of August 2021 and make payments before the 30th of June 2022. As much as possible, sir, we want to relieve Fijians from penalties and really assist those who are genuinely in financial difficulties. The amendments also allow those who update all their tax filing and payment of outstanding taxes within the tax amnesty period for forgiveness of all penalties, excluding audit penalties, without any prosecution. Valuable time and money is consumed in tax matters, Honourable Speaker, sir, settled in court on court matters that can otherwise be handled at CEO level. And to conclude, so on these ones, the many tax incentives announced in the 2021-2022 budget announcement is a testament and commitment of the Fiji First government to the Fijian people. The amendments put forth in this tax administration that takes away a whole lot of bureaucracy and introduces provisions that give ease in tax administration. And that's on that particular provision, sir. With respect to Bill 23, sir, the Income Tax Act 2015 Budget Amendment Act, a key amendment to the Income Tax Act is the extension of the export income deduction incentive for additional 3 years. Mr. Speaker, sir, exports over the next 3 years, 60% of all export income will not be taxed. And for exporters in the agriculture or fisheries sector, 90% will not be taxed. Mr. Speaker, sir, exports continue to play an important role for our economic stability and recovery. Exports actually contribute to maintaining favorable foreign reserves positions, supporting sectors such as manufacturing and agriculture, creating jobs, and favor our trade relations, upskilling Fijians in ever-evolving technology is required to operate and maintain the machinery and supporting livelihoods. In addition to this tax incentive, we have supported about 114 odd exporters through the National Export Strategy and the grant for established exporters or businesses on the verge of exporting. Honourable Speaker, sir, since the inception of the NES, we've provided support totaling approximately $15.3 million. And I'd like to thank the Attorney General and Honourable Minister for Economy for the continued budget support to enable the Ministry to encourage more Fijians to explore new markets beyond our borders. Another key amendment I'd like to highlight, sir, is the extension of the debt forgiveness period from the 31st of December 2022 for debts created on or before 31st December 2021. Under normal circumstances, Honourable Speaker, sir, the forgiven debt would be treated as a business income and consequently subject to income tax. However, with the provision extended to 2022, borrowers to whom this is applicable will not be taxed. The government understands the hardships our fellow Fijians are facing during these trying times. And data from our MCTTT survey on the second wave of the pandemic of more than 2,200 odd respondents revealed that 74% have either closed temporarily, permanently, or operated on reduced hours, and 77% have suffered more than 50% decline in revenue, and 21% odd requested for relief or deferment of credit and rental obligations. And these are very, very important pieces of information, and this is why you see all the incentives that have been put into the budget. Private or public companies or highly leveraged businesses operators can actually take advantage of this debt reform measure to remain operational. So we continue to talk to the private sector and listen and understand, and through these reforms, we strive to ease the burden. Now, so just lastly, just on Bill number 17, Honorable Speaker, sir, over the years there has been polemics against the Fijian government surrounding land. So the opposition has continued to use the land to influence people. They've never thought beyond the racial rhetoric. So they've never thought about the actual iTaukei and how they can actually create opportunities from their land. Never before, Honorable Speaker, sir, were all landowners within a unit entitled to equal share of the land lease. Never before was there protection to iTaukei land under the Constitution at a level that's been given by the Constitution, sir. Never before were there opportunities given to landowners to think bigger and gain from their land, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, we have said this time and time again. There is evidence that landowners have permanently lost their right over their land during previous governments. It's been said time and time again. The opposition cannot deny the unscrupulous manner in which iTaukei land was actually transferred from the state and then sold. And I talk about Momi and Denro, and we've said this time and time again. We are now actually blue in the face about after we say it. But, sir, I asked the opposition, who benefited from the sale of Denarau and Momi? Was it the landowners? No, sir, it wasn't. Under the Bainimarama government, Honorable Speaker, sir, and now the Fiji First government, not one single land-owning unit has lost their rights. Not an inch of land anywhere in
Honorable Minister, tell them.
ever been lost. And I'll repeat that, sir. Not one single inch of land.
Can't speak about it.
I'm not iTaukei, sir, but I can say this very clearly. Under this government, not a single inch of land has ever been lost by the iTaukei. Ever, sir. And it will not be under this constitution. Mr. Speaker, sir, I emphasize and I re-emphasize, the landowners are constitutionally protected. And I urge and I plead to members of the opposition, please read the Constitution properly to all members of the public, not just the iTaukei, so everybody in Fiji understands, so that you don't actually use it to sway some political opinion. We have always found ways where the landowners can seize opportunities to better their lives and that of their families and children, sir. I have seen some pretty bad stuff in social media in the last couple of days. And where does it stem from? It stems from people not telling the truth, sir. Through the ministry's programs, sir, we have actually, through the programs and through our cooperatives and MSMEs, we continue to work with resource owners. We continue to empower through the grants and the training and business advisory, sir. We want the resource owners to realize their dreams, to convert their resources into sustainable income generating ventures. Bill number 17 is not taking anything away from the landowners, sir. It's actually about how they can gain economically from the land. There's nothing substantial that's being done. It's merely a bureaucratic process that's being taken out. And the same applies to state land, sir. If it's good for state land, how can it be bad for the native lease owners? It's exactly the same, sir. How can they become owners of commercially viable and highly sought after land? I ask the opposition, don't you want the landowners to be economically stronger and better off? We all do, sir. It's very clear in the amendments that everything stated in section 12.1 is not included in the new section 12.1a. First and foremost, for any third party to have legal access to iTaukei land, they must have a valid lease. Any lawyer worth his salt will tell you that, sir. Any lawyer worth his salt won't twist that, sir. They won't. A lease can only be provided only when the relevant processes are completed. And this means The request to TLTB, who facilitates between the landowning unit and the lessee, the lease agreement itself can only be provided once 60% of the landowners have provided consent. The lease is officially issued by the TLTB and is duly registered with the Register of Titles. Now, if a legal lessee wants to develop the land, again, noting that the lease is approved for a specific type of development, the lessee will need basic amenities on the land. So, for example, whether it's a small leaseholder or a big leaseholder, they're going to need basic amenities on the land, which means like water or electricity. Is just common sense that because the lease is legally with the lessees, he or she should be able to connect water and electricity to the property. Why do they need to go back to the TLTP? Why do they need to go back to the lands department? What will what use will be what use will the land be to the lessee when basic utilities can't be connected? They take so long to do. Furthermore, if the lessee, based on the terms of the lease, wants to obtain a loan for development, again, Mr. Speaker, sir, approved development as per the lease. Why is the approval from TLTB or Ministry of Lands required? And when the lessee wants to change from one financial institution to another, which is actually a very common place at the moment because banks are actually offering better deals, etc. And they say, okay, well, if you come to us, like the Honorable Attorney General pointed out this morning, if you come to us within a certain amount of days, we can actually get this done, but it takes a long time to get done. We do realize it, sir. We've had consultations with so many people, most importantly, the TLDB itself. Then when the lessee wants to change a financier from, for example, ANZ to HFC, our own local bank, he or she has to again ask the TLTB or the Lands Department for approval. Why? Honorable Speaker, sir, what I have mentioned is only a couple of unnecessary processes imposed on a lessee who has legal access to the land with the consent of the landowners. These are actually cumbersome and now irrelevant procedures. But it doesn't take away their land. It doesn't do anything of that sort. It doesn't affect the ownership. What all Bill number 17 is proposing to do, and it's such a simple thing to understand, is to remove administrative burdens to enable a legal lessee to continue with his or her investment. It doesn't affect the landowner's rights at all. It doesn't. Any lawyer worth his salt will tell you that, sir. You cannot deny that. It's very mischievous of the opposition to say that landowners will lose their land somewhat or lose their land rent or lose their premium. That is simply wholly untrue, and it's absolutely not the case. Nothing in there whatsoever in the amendments will allow for such ludicrousy. Honorable Speaker, sir, consent is still required for dealings such as sale, such as transfer, such as subleasing or assignment to subleasing because it's actually a direct impact on the landowners. It's also important to highlight, sir, for all Fijians that the Constitution actually protects the interests of tenants and lessees of iTaukei and state lands. All state and iTaukei leases are legally protected instruments. Legally protected instruments, sir. Whilst fully protecting the ownership rights of iTaukei landowners, the bill allows the lessees and tenants to better utilize the leased land. They can undertake investments and contribute to the economy without getting frustrated by delays. This government, sir, remains committed to the Fijian people and to our vision of transforming Fiji and towards a roadmap devised to realize our full potential. Honorable Speaker, sir, I say this from the heart, sir. I say this as a full-blooded Fijian, born and bred here, sir. We care. We care for everybody. I have never met a more caring individual in this country than our Honorable Prime Minister. He cares very much for every single citizen in this country, and he stands with them. He stands with them and beside them through any phenomena, be it a natural disaster, be it a pandemic, or be it an economic crisis, sir. we rebound to normalcy together. And there is not a single leader in this country who has ever done that. Ever done that, sir.
Betul,
Our
betul. Yeah.
Honorable Prime Minister is the most protective person that has been born in this country, that looks after every single citizen, regardless of race, color, or creed, sir. We only wish that the best for our people. We need to move away from the orthodox thinking towards a modern and a forward focused country.